Are we ready? I'm very pleased this morning to announce with Commissioner Clark Sieben the beginning of the Angel Loan Fund, which will be a complement to the Angel Tax Credit, which has been very successful and highly used and was expanded by the legislature in the last session. For the last 2 years, we've had an Access to Capital Task Force headed by Mr. Ed Spencer, to look at what are the needs of businesses, particularly small businesses that are trying to get started, established, and expand in Minnesota. And one of the principal voids that they identified was the lack of access to capital, especially in this beginning stage where they are often on the knife's edge and depend on getting additional financing at acceptable terms in order to be able to move ahead. So this program addresses that, and Commissioner, I'll let you take it from there.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning. As Governor Dayton said, we are pleased to announce the launch of a new loan program to support Minnesota's small businesses. This $6.7 million Angel Loan Fund will provide assistance to Minnesota's small businesses and entrepreneurs in the early stages of business development, a critical point in the business life cycle. The Angel Loan Fund will provide interest-free loans of up to $250,000 with a one-time repayment at the end of a 7-year term that entrepreneurs can use for startup costs, working capital, inventory expenses, franchise funding, equipment loans, business acquisitions, expansions, and more. The Angel Loan Fund is part of a larger program, the State Small Business Credit Initiative, from which Minnesota received a total of $15 million to support Minnesota's small businesses and entrepreneurs. The State Small Business Credit Initiative stimulates private sector lending and improves access to capital for small businesses and manufacturers that are credit-worthy but having challenges obtaining the loans they need to expand and create jobs. Across all 4 state Small Business Credit Initiative programs, the goal is that for every $1 of public investment, businesses attract $10 in private investment. These programs are expected to leverage an additional $150 million in lending and create 3,000 new jobs in Minnesota. The Angel Loan Fund is closely tied to our very popular Angel Tax Credit program, which provides a 25% tax to qualified investors investing in high-tech startup businesses in the state. The Angel Tax Credit program has been a huge success and is in great demand, delivering more than $137 million in investments to Minnesota startups since it was launched in July 2010. The $12.7 million available in 2013 through this program generated nearly $50 million in new investments. This year, we have $12 million available through this program in tax credits for investors and expect this full amount will be distributed as soon as April. Given this great demand for access to capital in the early stages of the business life cycle, we're pleased to officially launch an additional resource to grow small businesses, the Angel Loan Program, and encourage all Minnesota small businesses of 500 employees or less to apply on the DEED website. In today's competitive business environment and tight credit environment, it's crucial we maintain our commitment to growing small businesses in Minnesota. They are the lifeblood of our economy and spur thousands of new jobs each year. This fund will continue to grow jobs across our state and leverage additional private investment now and in the years to come. Thank you. And for now, we will open it up to questions.
Commissioner, you touched on it, but will you explain what kind of companies are eligible for this, in particular the number of employees, and are these the same ones who qualify for the Angel Tax Credit?
Yes, companies need to be qualified for the Angel Tax Credit Program in order to be eligible for the Angel Loan Fund. Some of the qualifications, 500 employees or less. They need to be headquartered in Minnesota and have at least 51% of their employees based here in Minnesota. There are additional qualifications that are listed on the DEED website.
Are these forgivable? I mean, what happens if a business doesn't take off?
These are expected to be repaid over a 7-year term, so a one-time repayment of up to $250,000. If for some reason a business does not survive, there are pieces in place for the state to work with the company to make sure that money is recouped.
Clarify that they're repaid one time or over 7 years? You pay it at the end of the 7 years, you install it?
One-time balloon payment at the end of
Okay.
the term.
Thank you, Lisa. There's a-
Lisa Dargis is a senior investment officer. Her name is on the contact list, so she's going to be very popular all over. Hold the microphone so they can hear that response.
Yes, it is a one-time balloon payment at the end of the 7-year term.
Are there any requirements that they promise to add or create X many jobs in the state in order to qualify for this money?
No, the program itself, since it is funded through the State Small Business Credit Initiative, is really a private capital investment program, not necessarily a jobs program, but what we found is all of the programs that we've used the funding for have been doing quite well on the job front as well.
And Commissioner, would you describe what kinds of companies these are that you're looking for that are applying for these? What do they do? What kind of jobs are these?
These are a wide variety of jobs and industries. So it could be anything, any small business with 500 employees or less, could be in the manufacturing sector. These are used for expansions, for equipment purchases, for a variety of purposes for the business, franchise funding. So it really is quite flexible funding for these small businesses. And with that 0% interest loan of up to $250,000 can be a critical piece that companies need in those early stages of development.
Are you surprised at the success of the Angel Tax Credit? And obviously you're hoping for something more here.
You know, we've been very pleased with the response we've received through the Angel Tax Credit Program. It's every year the disbursements are completed earlier each year. There's greater demand happening year after year, which shows exactly why we need this Angel Loan Program, a second resource for small businesses in that critical stage of development. And the Angel Tax Credit Program is something we hope to see continue.
So can you get both? Can you get a loan and then qualify for the credit as well?
Yes.
You would see the credit is the investor.
So with the Angel Tax Credit Program, the tax credit does go directly to the investor. With the Angel Loan Program, the company is receiving that loan directly.
How difficult is it going to be for a business to get one of these loans? And is there a way to talk about that? I mean,
you know, as long as they meet those qualifications, we have worked very hard to make sure that this is an easy, accessible program for small businesses. There's very clear information posted on our website. It's important to DEED and all of state government that businesses are easily able to access that information and apply. We've heard from businesses that have used our Angel Tax Credit Program that they've been very pleased with how quickly they've received a response. In some cases, they were surprised at how quickly they received a response. I recently talked to a company that received a response within 4 days from submitting their application for the Angel Tax Credit Program, and we're very, very pleased. So that's something that we're committed to doing for businesses.
And what's the magic in 6.7?
This is a federally funded program through the State Small Business Credit Initiative, which is a total of $15 million. So $6.7 million of the total $15 million is allocated towards the Angel Loan Program.
Governor, this is one more instrument of trying to grow more jobs. You note in the press release, and I'm wondering if you talk a little bit more about it. You've said that 122,000 jobs have been created, essentially replacing the ones lost in the recession. Is the recession over?
Well, it's over for people who are back to work, that there are 140,000 Minnesotans who are still looking for work. And while we have an unemployment rate of 4.8%, which is one of the lowest in the nation, that's still not what anybody historically has claimed as full employment. So we're on the right track, and those numbers support that, but we have a lot more work to do. And these are programs that are going to encourage businesses to expand, and I agree with Ms. Dargis that they're going to, by expanding, be likely to create more jobs in Minnesota. Any questions on this? And if there are no other questions on any other subject, well, thank you very much. Sit down. Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you. What's up?
Any questions for the governor?
Well, Governor, there is a report this morning that the executive director of MNsure took a vacation to Costa Rica as everything is ramping up for the healthcare exchange. Are you okay with that?
Well, the executive director, by statute, operationally reports to the board. So whatever the employment arrangements are with the executive director or anybody else in the staff is ultimately the board's responsibility. I know that the executive director has worked extraordinarily hard for months now, probably most of the last year. And my understanding was this was a long-planned vacation where, financial commitments were made. I don't know enough of the details, but it's obviously a very critical time for MNsure, and that is ultimately her responsibility.
Well, particularly since people are scrambling for insurance and there are glitches, and you have some concerns about that as well. We're just a few weeks away.
Absolutely, and my concerns are just as I noted yesterday. That I think we're past the point where MNsure's problems are acceptable, and that people who are calling should be have prompt and efficient service, and that is ultimately the senior staff's responsibility of MNsure, and ultimately the board's responsibility, which we're making sure they are well aware of.
What concrete actions would you like MNsure to take to ensure that they're ready to go on?
Well, they need to fix these glitches. I'm not a computer expert. I don't know. They need to be staffed up. I'm incredulous that they were as short of staff to receive these calls and inquiries as they apparently are by the number of the people they're adding and are going to add. So they need to have that capacity to be responsive, and that's a human element. The computers themselves, in terms of whatever is missing in the linkages with the health plans and others are beyond my level of technical expertise, but that's somebody's job, and I know there have been a couple of issues with a couple of the vendors, the contractors, in terms of their responsibilities, and those need to be worked out. So and there's a lot that goes right there. It's unacceptable, the delays and the problems people are having. And yet it's also, an enormously complex task. And if you look at Minnesota compared to the federal program, I mean, we're way ahead of what 36 other states are experiencing, who had the small business part of the exchange program put off for a year. Minnesota, we have our small business program working, and it's actually been found to be one of the major beneficiaries of the program are small businesses that can get more affordable health coverage for their employees through the health exchange. And if you look at the 14 state-run exchanges, I read a lot about it, and I see the ones that are cited as having the best performance and the ones that are cited as having the worst performance. And generally speaking, Minnesota is not in either category, which says to me that of the 14, we're somewhere in the middle, and that's not good enough. It means we're probably better than what 40 to 42 to 3 other states are experiencing, but it's not good enough, and we've got to do it better. And that's my responsibility. That's the board's responsibility. That's the executive staff of MNsure's responsibility, and believe me, everybody feels that responsibility very acutely. And we're going to work on it. We have a conference call this afternoon. We had one on Tuesday. We have 2 to 3 conference calls a week with the senior staff and others involved, and a couple of the board members, the leadership are there. So believe me, it's constantly on my mind, and it's constantly on their mind, and we're going to continue to work around the clock until it's perfect.
Governor, are you responding to media coverage of the glitches, or is your office actually getting calls from the public about this?
I'm not aware of getting calls. You do get calls.
And we respond to them.
Quickly.
Well, do you have full confidence in the MNsure board and the executive leadership there to get this problem fixed?
let's see how they perform in the next week, 10 days. I think this is a very critical period. I think one of the issues has been the board and even, my office being aware of what these problems are and the extent and the ones that are looming ahead. And we need to change that pattern. And so I would say board meets next Wednesday. I think the next week to 10 days will be critical, both in terms of the functioning of the operation, given the timetable, but also in terms of the capability of the senior staff and the board to manage the organization through this challenging time.
If people are unable to do what they need to do through Minsure, what happens?
Well, they have a good question. I mean, I'm told that on the website there's information about the alternatives people have if they are not getting through the Minsure system. Now, that shouldn't be necessary, but they can contact, that's where the call center is getting a lot of calls, and they are able to refer people. We have a whole group of people, a network around the state of people who are, trained and prepared to assist people, but it's not, it's not one-stop shopping that way, and that's where, to my mind, it's not acceptable that, somebody has to, decipher what an alternative route would be. Now, I'm told that by the health plans who've been very supportive and very cooperative throughout this and during these difficulties and wanting, along with us, to make this successful and be successful on January 1st. And of course, a lot of people who are enrolling are going to the Medicaid program and the Minnesota MinCare program, and those people, I'm assured, are going to be covered on January 1st and presumably notified of such, and the private insurance as well, that if people are in the works, in the process, and made the connections, even if they haven't received that notification, which they should have and hopefully will have, but if in the worst case scenario they've not, they'll be covered on January 1st. But again, I'm not pretending this is a desirable situation, because it's not. But it's one we're going to work around the clock to improve until we get it to where it should be, which is near perfect.
It's a very critical time, as you say, and you're acknowledging some of these glitches to the point where you're not sleeping at night, you say.
Well, the question was phrased at the AMC event, what keeps you up at night? And
that keeps you up at night.
Well,
so how can they take a vacation? How can someone take a vacation like that?
I think that's a question for the executive director and for the board. For the board, that's their purview.
Governor, have you given any response to the Republicans yet on this letter about your esteemed chief of staff?
Well, I think the comment was made yesterday that this has become a pattern. Republican legislators who are either bored or craving attention, so they send a letter that the press gets either at the same time or often before I do, and so that tells me right away what the intent of the letter is. It's not about constructively working out something that someone has a concern about, but about getting press attention, and as long as they keep getting press attention, I expect those letters will continue to be forthcoming. In this case, I made that appointment in the middle of July, and almost 5 months later, the representative finally got concerned enough to express for strong concern. And the legislative auditor's report, which she mischaracterizes in her letter, is saying he just gave a stamp of approval to the financial aspect of it was a blanket that there's nothing to your accusations or questions, and it's entirely within the legal authority of myself and the role of the DMC, and the fact, as he pointed out, that every member of the board has some organizational affiliation. One of the big differences I have with the Republicans is they don't think that government should be involved in any of these public-private partnerships. They're against the stadium. They're against all these bonding requests for projects all over the state of Minnesota, and they're against this DMC project. I want my chief of staff, who did a superb job of navigating the legislation through the legislature last session, which is why Mayo, their number one draft pick was Tina Smith to be on the board, because she had worked so successfully with the legislature, with local officials in Rochester, Olmsted County, with the Mayo people, executives. And so I appointed her at their recommendation and request, and the board elected her unanimously the chair of the board. And I think she'll do a superb job. And, you know, was duty, loyalty of duty. I've never known anybody question Tina Smith's loyalty of duty to any of her responsibilities. And I don't see if there is it should appear develop some conflict of interest given her role as my chief of staff and chair of that DMC board. You know, she'll deal with that in advance and ethically, legally, and responsibly, I have no doubt. And until that happens, for anybody to impugn her integrity or the ethics of her taking that position, I think is just, you know, totally ludicrous and just an attempt to get some attention, which we're giving it now.
Governor, last week you said that if there's a surplus next session, one of your priorities will be tax conformity. Why did you pick that over, say, other spending initiatives or?
Well, we discussed it last session. I know that the House Tax Chair, Ann Lancheski, is very strongly favorable toward it. The Senate, I think, is favorable. It's sort of already been assessed. It does focus its relief on middle-income taxpayers, so it has that advantage. I'm not wedded to that as the solution, but I think it's a very good one, eliminating the marriage penalty and the working person credit, and the child care credit. I think it's got some very good features to it, and it simplifies the tax system. It fits within the spirit of the end session, which is to simplify matters. It's simpler for people if they can just basically take the federal deductions and credits and use those at the state as well. So. But again, I'm not. Starting now is my preference, and I think we need direct tax relief to middle-income taxpayers in Minnesota with some of these additional resources. But I'm not wedded to that as the way in which it has to occur.
Governor, how about a bonding bill? I know you recently met with Chair Hausman. Sounds like you're open to a bigger bonding bill.
Well, we have over $2.5 billion of requests for what is budgeted in the budget forecast as a $775 million bonding bill, and then the appropriation to pay for the debt service of that. Given the surplus situation and the fact that it would cost between $3 and $4 million to increase the bonding bill by $200 million to say $975 million in next year, I'm strongly inclined to take that approach because even with that, we're still looking at 2.5 times the number of projects, and 90% of which are very worthwhile and urgently needed to the resources that are available. And I'm well along my process of deciding which projects are going to be part of my budget proposal, which is due January 15th. And I just cringe at having to say no to projects that are really needed and really would be worthwhile, would put people to work, and would improve infrastructure all over the state, including public buildings, especially the higher education area, where MnSCU itself has about $150 million of bonding requests. And again, I'm assuming most of that is needed both to repair existing buildings, which is about half that request, and then also to develop these new programs and initiatives that I believe are crucial to preparing young people for the jobs of the future and getting state-of-the-art facilities, equipment, technology, so that our programs are ones that we can assure young people if you go through that program, you're going to be ready to go to work and work well when you leave, when you graduate. So I just view this as absolutely essential, and legislature can debate it, but we have the resources, we have the ability, that we know these projects produce jobs and benefit the state that way, and they provide long-term benefits in terms of better quality education and parks and other various public activities.
Are you thinking some bonding money would still be needed for more capital improvements and the governor's residence, or would that be separate?
That's a separate matter. That was approved before I took office, and the governor's residence council has complete control over the residents. I merely rent, and short-term lease, favorable terms, but that's their purview. They're assessing the extent of the additional damage and seeing whether it's confined to western wing, or whether it's looming over my head, which is of some interest to me. But we'll see what see what their assessment is and see what the price of that is. But the project's been whittled down over the last couple of years to really what people consider to be essential repairs for the structural integrity of the building and the access to it. So we'll keep it, my intent would certainly be to keep it within that framework, and we'll just have to see if there's additional essential repairs necessary because of this latest collapse.
Governor, earlier in the week, the Senate hosted a hearing to talk about the issue of security near the U of M campus. What, if any, role do you think the state has in trying to tighten up security in that area?
Well, I think our goal and our responsibility is to assure every student in every campus in Minnesota that she or he can walk safely without fear of assault or abuse. And the university has this responsibility there. The local law enforcement and the cities where these institutions are located, and we will do whatever we can as a state, whatever we're asked to do by MNSCU or the University of Minnesota. I've not seen any specific requests for resources to beef up those efforts, but it's it's just totally unacceptable that anybody would be victimized that way, and I mean anybody, whether a student or not, equally offensive to the rest of us. And students, especially given they are part of a public university college system, we have a very major responsibility, which we'll certainly do our best to carry out.
One of the problems, Governor, is that these crimes, most of these crimes are not occurring on the campus itself. They're in the housing areas outside the campus in the city, where more and more students are living. And some of the requests that the U might make are more lighting, or the city might make more lighting, more cameras, those kinds of things. Is the state open to funding that kind of initiative?
We're open to considering any request, and looking at the the broader scope, as you say, of the university configuration. I can't respond specifically because I don't have any proposal, but I will certainly look at whatever comes forward and talk with the university or whoever it is about what their role is, and financially and otherwise, and the city and ourselves. But we need that kind of partnership to make people safer. Then no question we should be proceeding.
You took 2 mystery trips this year. We know what you were doing for one of the trips. Are you in a position you can tell us where you went on your second?
Next week. Just in time for the holidays. Okay.
Do you have a pretty widespread support for repealing the warehouse tax?
I guess Steve, that lights my
John Coleman from CARE.
Yeah.
What's the latest on getting the warehouse tax repealed?
Well, I believe all 3 of those taxes were ill-advised and should be repealed. The warehouse tax does not take effect till April 1st, so if the legislature acts in the first month of the session, then that can be forestalled. The other 2 are in effect now and would need to be repealed either effective April 1st or at the worst July 1st. It's $262 million for the 3 combined, and I believe it's both affordable and important, and we'll see if we can get the legislature to concur. Everybody's assessing their options now. I mean, I don't know of anybody who is, at least I know of, who's forecasting $1 billion surplus. So I think everybody's in the process now of looking to see what their options are and what their priorities are. And we're still 2.5 months away from the legislative sessions beginning, so there's still quite a bit of time for people to go through that process.
Anything else?
Governor, you've expressed some concern over the Senate office building project. Do you think that project should go forward, or are you planning to sort of insert yourself in that process?
Well, it's not going forward now because the House and Senate Rules Committees both have to separately approve it, and I met with Speaker Thiessen on meeting on other matters, but that subject came up and expressed my concern. I've not had a chance to meet with Senator Bach and his principles on that project, but I'm looking to do so. And I think it's something that will need to be addressed early next year, but it's not something that's going to happen imminently. So we've asked the Department of Administration to come up with some alternatives and this cost savings that would result from those, so we have something specific to look at. I believe that we need to resolve this entire capital complex in one undertaking, and that the capital improvements are obviously the main part of that, but rationalizing the arrangement now where you have the Senate minorities members over in the state office building and the House members, and you got senators here, and you got people, dispersed support staff elsewhere, is not a long-term solution. So I support the idea of the building, but I think it's got to be a functional building and not one that fits within proper Minnesota modesty. And I hope we can get there. We'll see.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.